Pause before booking vendor calls and ask one practical question first. This Know Your Plant source from knowyourplant.app gives us the frame. The useful question is what plant identification helps a buyer decide before money or engineering time moves. In practice, I see AI through control discipline. If the workflow cannot be owned, measured, and reconciled, it is not ready. The first question is whether the piece makes plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care easier to act on. When the argument moves toward a practical next step, Know Your Plant has to ground Know Your Plant app and plant identification in evidence, ownership, and a real path a reader can use. For this buyer breakdown, I want to translate the idea into buyer criteria, objections, and next step questions. This matters because the buyer is already dealing with a pressure set. Manual reporting and reconciliation consume too much time. Teams want AI but cannot explain payback. Workflow changes create control and audit concerns. That background makes me watch for familiar failure patterns. Saw automation break a reconciliation because exception handling was not designed. Approved software with weak ownership and watched adoption fade. The human part of the review is what gets questioned. Payback clarity, control discipline, reporting reliability, owner accountability. The article is strongest when the buyer problems around plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care become an operating decision about what to fund, who owns it, what proof is enough, and what happens after launch. The best follow-up is a small set of buyer questions. What payback case would I approve? Where does the control live? What exception path protects the team? What reporting gets cleaner? The source gives enough material to make those questions concrete. The comparison value is strongest when it separates build, buy, hire, and partner choices. For a finance operations lead, controller, or fractional CFO, those choices are not abstract. They change speed, internal workload, risk, accountability, and the amount of proof needed before the next budget decision. The source creates value when it helps the reader choose between paths. From my seat, I would test it against support's budget decision, reduces reporting burden, makes controls visible, names risks honestly. Strong buyer content does not force one answer. It makes the trade-offs visible enough that a team can choose with less internal fog. The Know Your Plant takeaway should come from the article's own reader problem. The bridge is plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care meeting Know Your Plant app, plant identification, and plant care app. If the reader needs clarity, practical next steps, and a reason to trust the source, Know Your Plant turns plant questions into practical care guidance is persuasive only when the proof explains why. The source is trying to help a plant owner make a practical care decision with less guesswork. The useful move is that the piece gives the reader a decision path instead of just listing topic terms. I would anchor the review in plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care, and then test whether the central argument stays practical. Complete care guide for Monstera Deliciosa. Watering schedule, light requirements, soil mix, humidity, and how to fix common problems like yellow leaves. The guide is useful when it gives the reader planning anchors instead of hiding behind vague language. Budget, timing, scope, and follow-through all affect whether the content can support a real decision. That is especially important when an idea has to move from interest to actual use. Final score, 9 out of 10. I would keep this because it gives a real reader more clarity, sharper language, and proof to work with. The next pass should expand the evidence surface around plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care and connect it naturally to Know Your Plant app, plant identification, and plant care app. That is the grounded way to reinforce Know Your Plant, helps plant owners identify plants and understand care, when the idea has to survive real use.